Hey guys, welcome to the very first video of 989 Media. My name is Logan and today we're going to be reviewing Damien Leone's Terrifier 2. Terrifier 2 is a direct sequel to the 2016 movie Terrifier, which I personally was a really big fan of, but I feel like I was a very small minority of the people who really liked the film. Many people complained about there being a lack of plot or character development that could really draw a person into seeing this movie from start to finish. And this is where Terrifier 2 really takes the first one and amps it up by much, much more. Without saying too much more, I do want to let everyone know that this is going to be a spoiler-free review. I feel like this is the type of movie that you want to go into the theaters not knowing much about it. So I'm just going to give you the general plot synopsis, and at the end of this video, I'm going to give you recommendations based off 4 categories. What Terrifier 2 does much better than its predecessor is it introduces a solid plot, and then it mixes in some very good characters that we see them embark on a journey in character development, and then we also begin to empathize with these characters, and we really care what's going to happen to them by the end of the movie, versus the very first movie where we really didn't care what was going to happen to the main protagonists because we didn't know much about them, we didn't know their backstory. In Terrifier 2, this is all that we know. It's building a backstory, building these characters, and that really has to do with a limited cast. Having this limited cast means that they get a lot of the screen time, and we really begin to know their background, their motives, and the story that they're embarking on, and to the point where we really care about them and we want to see what's going to happen. The biggest thing that I have to bring up in this video, and what Terrifier 2 is already known for in the short amount of time that it's been out, is the absolute gore that is involved with it. Built on only a $250,000 budget, which is absolute pennies in the movie industry. If you look at any of the new horror movies that are coming out, you're talking tens of millions of dollars. To be able to pull off the iconic and gruesome and violent kills along with all the special effects for $250,000 is absolutely insane. And I think that's what takes Terrifier 2 to the next level, and that I think what should solidify it being a franchise going into the future. What Terrifier 2 does very, very well is it mixes in a very bold element, a very unique in its own sense, and then a very gruesome killing style that we don't get to see in traditional Hollywood anymore. These traditional movies, you get to see a very small portion of the kill, and then it cuts off to something else because they don't want to be seen as too gruesome or too violent. But that's where this Terrifier franchise and Art the Clown come in, is because that's what, this whole movie's about, and what he's known for is these very gruesome and detailed kills that you get to see from beginning, middle, and then end. And then the extra end, because when you expect it to be over, it just keeps on going. And I remember just being in theaters on the edge of my seat thinking you have no idea what's going to happen next because this guy's insane. And when you think it's over, it just keeps on going. And to the point where you just literally say out loud, wow. If you're a big fan of the slasher movie style and you're the type of person that gravitates more towards the 1980s and those iconic, gruesome, and very unique kills, then Art the Clown and this Terrifier franchise is probably going to move up your list of your favorite movies. Before I get into my final review and recommendation, I do want to touch upon a few negatives that I did take away from the film. The main one being that 2-hour and 38-minute runtime, which I already know a lot of people agree with me upon. There's a reason nowadays why most films are around 90 minutes or an hour and a half. There was a point between the second and third act where you kind of just sit back and you're wondering where this is going to go or if it can advance. And that's where I think the film really could have chopped off 30 minutes while also not sacrificing any of the plot or the character development or including those gruesome kills. So I think that's one major downfall of this film. And of course, the moment that you guys have all been waiting for, my biggest pet peeve of Terrifier 2, and that would be having Chris Jericho, a WWE all-time great.
Ugh, the WWE is not wrestling!
Only in the post-credit scene and for less than 5 minutes. I feel like they did this dude severe injustice. What I would have paid, and I would have sat through 2 hours and 38 minutes to see Chris Jericho versus Art the Clown in a no-holds-bar match, because you already know Art the Clown's got his trash bag full of all of his goodies, and then seeing Chris Jericho in his element, putting him in the walls of Jericho. All I'm saying is a wrestle-off between the two, I'm thinking it's fair game, as long as Art the Clown really, doesn't pull out too many of his bag of tricks. But all I'm saying is I think they did this dude injustice, and to get to see them go, even just to see a small encounter, I think would have added to the comedic effect, and then who knows what it went for there. Maybe it would have added to more gore effect, but I really think that they could have done something there. Maybe they will in the future, though, with that post-credit scene, so we'll see. Damien, if you're watching this, I really think you could capitalize on that. And lastly, it is time for my final review, which I'm going to be basing off of 4 criteria, which I think I'm going to be using going forward for all of my movie/TV show reviews. So why don't you go ahead and let me know in the comments down below whether I should keep this criteria, add or subtract, or change the grading scale. So first up is going to be horror, which after talking this up the whole video, I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10. I think Art the Clown has solidified himself as one of the most iconic killers with all of his gruesome and very, very, very unique kills. So I think that's what's going to make this franchise succeed, and maybe very much hoping so that it's going to be many more movies to come in the future. So horror is going to get 8.5 out of 10. And the next criteria I'm going to be basing off of is the suspense factor. I'm giving this an 8 out of 10. I just remember so many parts of the movie I was sitting on the edge of my seat, really not knowing what was going to happen next. And I really believe this stems from not knowing this Art the Clown character that well. We've explored these other iconic movie slashers through 7, 8, 9, 10 movies. This is only his second standalone film, and we really have only broken this outer shell of him. We don't understand what makes him tick. All that we know of him right now and all that we're kind of perceived is that he's very psychotic and on edge and really don't know why he's doing the things that he's doing. So that's why the suspense is so high, because we really don't understand him. And that's something that I very much like, is because it's not predictable and they're really not confining themselves to just doing one thing. The next criteria I'm going to be basing all of my movie off of is going to be comedy. I never thought I'd really be saying this about a horror movie, but I'm going to be giving this 7.5 out of 10. Art the Clown really knows how to bring in a comedic factor that's very creepy for somebody who doesn't talk, but you literally just say wow out loud over and over again, to the point where like it's very disgusting and disturbing, but some of the stuff's so comedic and like over the top that you really just like find it funny, I guess. But that's why this is getting a 7.5 out of 10 for me. And last but not least, the final thing I'm going to be basing this movie off of is the story/plot, and I'm going to go ahead and give Terrifier 2 a 7 out of 10 when it comes to that. As I mentioned briefly earlier in the video, the original Terrifier really didn't do a good job of introducing a very solid set of characters that the viewer could become interested in and want to return to future films, as well as introducing a very subpar plot or storyline. I think the main motive was to introduce Art the Clown as this very iconic and gruesome slasher, but this is where Terrifier 2 rights all of those wrongs by introducing a very solid set of characters with a good backstory and a very good character arc that we could see for films to come, to the point where the viewer becomes interested in wanting these characters to survive and to see what's going to happen to them. So bringing the average of all 4 of those criteria, Terrifier 2 is going to get a final score of 7.75. So if you couldn't have guessed at this point in the video, 100% I'm going to tell you to go see this movie in theaters. If nothing else, I think you're going to be a little bit disturbed/freaked out if you watch it alone. So go be with other horror movie fans, grab that big thing of popcorn, grab a slushie, grab those Milk Duds or your favorite candy, and just go watch this $250,000 budget film on the big screen, and I think you're really going to be in awe of the special effects that they could have pulled off. And finally, that wraps up my very first movie review for 989 Media. If you liked even the smallest portion of this video, go down below, hit that big thumbs up button. Your support means the world to me. And while you're down there, hit that big red subscribe button so you can stay tuned for any future movie/television reviews coming to the channel. And while you're down there, go ahead and comment what you thought of the Terrifier 2 movie, whether you liked something, you disliked something, whether you want to go see it in theaters, and where you want to see Art the Clown going forward with the movie franchise. And lastly, stay tuned for this coming week. The ending movie Halloween Ends for this trilogy comes out, which happens to be my favorite franchise of all time. We get to see what happens between Michael and Laurie. So stay tuned within the coming week for the movie review coming with that. And until I see you then, peace out.